Nintendo continues to piss people off, and I feel like this constant anger from the fan base, it's not coming from a place of malice. It's the fact that Nintendo, when it came to the original Nintendo Switch, I feel like this thing had so much charm, and really, it got so much stuff right. The fact that it's got good games, the fact that it's got an easy interface, a good battery life, and also, it was so cheap. But every aspect of the Nintendo Switch 2, it seems like they're obsessed with profit. They don't even care about being an actually cool device, which, today we have to talk about the fact that just about 36 hours ago, Nintendo rolled out a new update to the original Nintendo Switch, and it's coming at launch for the Nintendo Switch 2 that is honestly just stupid. They can now remote brick your system. If you say something that Nintendo doesn't like, they can deactivate your system forever. Your $500 Nintendo Switch 2, if you do anything weird, if you put it in airplane mode to try and duplicate the game on your friend's system or something, anything they don't like, they can brick it. They're officially, we're going to take a look at their statements because they've clarified about how bad this is. Your Switch 2 is literally listening to you. And if anything seems weird, you're just gone. And I want to talk about this because just in general, it feels like it's very bizarre that we don't actually own our systems. It doesn't matter how expensive your Switch 2 is, you legally don't own it, and they just admit that. Let's talk. Hi, hope you're having a great day, and if you could please give this video a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Okay, so this is two separate things we're going to break down, and I want to talk about why I think they're doing this, because I feel like part of what's so annoying about the Nintendo Switch 2, beyond just the expensive price points, I feel like the system itself feels like it's created by a committee of business people instead of actual gamers. I feel like even when I've had problems with Nintendo in the past, you can't say the fact that the system itself doesn't have those Satoru Iwata fingerprints on it. You could tell that this thing was designed to be an incredible gaming device more than anything else. Whereas with the Switch 2, we're definitely in the era of the businessman. So there is a key change in the updated Nintendo agreement that you have to accept in order to basically download games or interact with any of the online stuff. If you mod your Switch, try to get around the DRM, use unauthorized copies of games, it will brick your Switch. Now, this is the thing. DRM, digital rights management. Basically, your system has to be always online. It has to constantly do check-ins. Now, to me, I extra think this sucks. There's been a lot of talk lately about how games just don't exist anymore. It's very stupid about the fact that one of the things that made the original Nintendo Switch so cool was that when you bought a game, it's physically on there, right? This is a real thing. I can take this, I can pop it into my Switch, I can immediately play it, I can lend it to a buddy of mine. It's the entire game. Whereas with the Nintendo Switch 2, the games are fake. They're key cards. Now, other systems are doing this as well. I very much hate it, but like we're just seeing today, people are starting to get the Doom, the Dark Ages physical discs early, and it turns out it's fake. The actual disc is 85 megabytes. It actually downloads the 150 gigs of actual game off the internet. And I guess Nintendo thinks this is a good idea, that this is a great thing to try and copy from the wider industry. But more than that, the games only exist as long as it's talking to the internet. If it doesn't have the ability to do online check-ins, if you try to put it in airplane mode and stuff, if you try to do anything that might be even perpetually perceived as sussy, they'll just brick your console. And I'm very annoyed about this because I feel like people are like, well, if I'm being legit, that's fine. But look, Nintendo is very, very litigious. They sue people for making mods. They sue people for actually trying to make fan copies or even doing like custom Pokemon stuff. All of that, they sue the hell out of you. So basically, Switch 2 basically requires the internet to even turn on. People are going, no duh, but it's still a bad move. Remember, there are people like Stop Killing Games that are trying to do their best to make it where you have preservation and ownership. I am a bit afraid about the fact that the games I grew up with still exist. I can still buy a physical copy of Resident Evil on PlayStation 2 and pop it into my PlayStation 2 and still play it. Whereas I do feel a bit weird about the fact that a lot of the games that people are growing up with today, that they love today, they're not going to exist even in a couple of years. If your games require a download and an online check-in forever, What happens when those servers don't exist? Recently, I had some viral videos talking about the big PSN outage, and a lot of people were talking about the fact that there are games that just don't exist when PlayStation servers go down. And Nintendo's always been that bastion, that thing we held up as an example of, okay, this sucks, but at least my Switch works. I had a time about a year and a half ago where I lost power in my house for like 2 days. I was just stuck in the dark. Thankfully, it wasn't the summer, it wasn't too hot, but it was pretty damn boring. So I sat there and I just played a bunch of Nintendo Switch, because my Nintendo Switch, not only does it have its own screen, it's got its own battery, I could recharge it at a local Starbucks and stuff, but more than that, it played games without the internet. And I guess Nintendo said, okay, that's one thing we definitely want to change. What happens when there's a false positive? This is my biggest fear. I do not like the idea that Nintendo headquarters, if they even perceive that you're doing something slightly amiss, they can permanently destroy your system. $500, it's a lot of money to me. It is a lot of money to me. I'm buying the Nintendo Switch 2 because I want to review it, and I'll be honest, I'm not optimistic about the Switch 2 at all. I think it honestly does not look worth the money, but I wanted to see if I'm wrong. I've been wrong in the past. I wanted to get it. I am terrified about the idea that what if I do something wrong? What if there's some glitch? What if the server at some point doesn't like me and my $500 Nintendo Switch 2 gets bricked? Do I get a refund? Can I trade it in? Can I reformat it? Can I do some sort of groveling apology to Daddy Nintendo and just make a new Nintendo account? We really don't know. But here's the other part of it that feels extremely weird, that some people are definitely not exactly sort of sure how to process, which is that your Nintendo Switch is now going to be always listening to. They're monitoring and recording video and audio interactions with other users. Now, it's just stored on your device. It's not going automatically to Nintendo headquarters, but essentially, if anybody reports you, they can then pull that data remotely and decide whether or not your system deserves to be bricked. Now, this is a weird point. I do feel like Nintendo seems to be very afraid of voice chat. They've been very, very slow about this. I mean, it's been almost 10 years since the original Nintendo Switch came out, and even then the amount of games that have voice chat, very hit and miss. Now, I understand they're trying to make it safe. They want to have the ecosystem where families can buy it, families can play it, but I almost feel like the family plan, I'm almost in a spot where I kind of wish that anybody was allowed to just play the Nintendo Switch, but I don't know. I feel like maybe make it where it's recording interactions with family playing systems or something. I don't know. I still feel weird about the idea that Nintendo can pull my chat logs and permaban me. I'll be honest, I don't even want to buy the Nintendo camera or anything like that, just because honestly it doesn't really seem like something that's fun to me. The entire chat function, one of the big selling points about the Nintendo Switch 2 over the Nintendo Switch 1 is the chat function. There's like a new C button, and you pay a yearly subscription fee in order to be able to chat with your friends. The entire thing of it's very, very dumb, but now if I know there is a risk that I make a dumb joke. I had a time recently where I actually got a 7-day ban in a game because I was playing with a friend of mine and he pissed me off, and I jokingly said, drink my cum through a straw. Okay, yeah, I'm being graphic. I said, drink my cum through a straw. I got a 7-day ban in that game because me and my buddy were joking around and a third party reported me. I am a bit concerned about, okay, what happens if that happens with other games? What happens if instead of my game getting banned, my console gets banned? That's the kind of stuff that does kind of stick in my brain. Now, why are they doing this? I honestly think it's that Nintendo is terrified of this system not being even half as big as the original Nintendo Switch. Already they're saying, oh yeah, we're predicting our fiscal year is going to be much, much lower than we expected because profits will rise less than 10%. This means that they're expecting this to be the least profitable hardware launch ever in Nintendo history. And it sounds like they're doing this because the system is more powerful. The tariffs are messing with the prices and stuff like that. But also, I do feel like this is sort of the profit-obsessed era of Nintendo. How much can we charge for a game? How much can we charge for a system? How much can we get away with charging you $100 for extra controllers? How much can we do to make sure you're always buying and locked into our ecosystem? If these systems start getting bricked, every one of it, I feel like, is going to be a big story. Every person where, hey, I tried to do some sort of duplication thing. I passed my friend a virtual game card and we both went to airplane mode so we could both play it. Anything like that might actually trip up this auto ban DRM blockage system. I do think that every person who Switch 2 gets bricked is going to end up making headlines. I think there is going to be articles. If they're really enforcing this as strictly as Nintendo enforces a lot of their other stuff, I do think there is a good chance that, honestly, we're going to start seeing a lot of systems basically self-destruct. And that would suck. But this has just been some off-the-cuff thoughts. How do you feel about the Nintendo Switch 2? Are you excited for the Nintendo Switch 2? I'll be honest, I'm not at all. I pre-order it because, honestly, I review a lot of Nintendo hardware, but this is the first generation ever where I could say that my hype is like literally a 0. I'm not even trying to be hyperbolic. I mean, literally, measurably, I am at a 0 of hype. But tell me your thoughts in the comments down below. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a like and subscribe if you haven't already. And please keep dreaming. Oh, God. If my Switch 2 gets bricked, I'm gonna crash out. Thanks so much for watching that video. If you want to see something else, you can always click this link to see what I put up last, or, subscribe and see what's coming up next. Also, I promise that whatever I do, it'll try not to suck.